everyone, it's Alyssa. I'm back in StreamYard, which means that we're going to be reacting to a video. I tried to do this not in StreamYard, but I could not figure out a way to do this. So if anybody knows an easier way for me to do this, where I don't have to rely on StreamYard and possibly have it screw up all my audio, please let me know. But anyway, as per the title of this video, we are going to talk about the Sanderson versus Audible thing that's going on right now. Daniel Greene put out a video. I have read Sanderson's statement, and I figured the best way for us to sort of discuss this is to watch Daniel Greene's video and talk about it. Hopefully Daniel Greene does not copyright strike me. We'll find out. And I'm going to put on some makeup while we do this. This is not a makeup channel, but I have more videos to film today, so we might as well get this going. So let's jump right into this reaction and see what's going on with Audible, because I think this is all very interesting and I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts about it. So let's talk about it.
Okay, everybody, it is time to cover maybe the biggest drama, quote-unquote, of the publishing industry of the year, and that is going to be the Sanderson v. Audible situation. Now, I have been taking a little bit of time to cover this because I was trying to attempt some things on my end that unfortunately did not work out. We'll go over those at the end because I think the fact they didn't work out actually helps emphasize some of Sanderson's points here. But before we get into it, so everyone's on the same page, I'm going to go ahead and read through Sanderson's statement. If you have already read through this, time code down below to get to discussing the points within it. But for now, here is what Sanderson has said about his secret projects and Audible. Audiobooks for non-backers. On the 10th or 11th of each month, a book goes to backers. We will put the audiobooks up for sale. They will be on several services, but I recommend the two I mentioned above, Spotify and Speechify. The books will not be on Audible for the foreseeable future. This is dangerous on my part. I don't want to make an enemy of Amazon.
Just that alone is kind of crazy that he is going to not put stuff on Audible, and he's going to get into it, but it's a little bit crazy because a lot of times there is no way to avoid Audible. It doesn't matter almost where you put an audiobook. Don't judge me on my makeup skills. I'm not good at this. It almost doesn't matter where you put an audiobook. Somehow it ends up on Audible forever and always. So he is doing something that could potentially be game-changing.
I like the people at Audible and had several meetings with them this year, but Audible has grown to a place where it's very bad for authors. It's a good company doing bad things. Again, this is dangerous to say. I don't want to make anyone feel guilty. I have an Audible account and subscription. It's how my dyslexic son reads most of the books he reads. Audible did some great things for books, notably spearheading the audio revolution, which brought audiobooks down to a reasonable price. I like that part a lot. However, they treat authors very poorly, particularly indie authors. The deal Audible demands of them is unconscionable, and I am hoping that providing market forces will encourage change in a positive direction.
I am hoping that there are some indie authors that are going to be in my comments here that are going to talk about how they feel about Audible. I know a lot of indie authors eventually get into the audiobook space because it's getting really big. I remember when I first started listening to audiobooks, like Audible was really the only game in town. And I did listen to a lot of audiobooks way back in the day before Audible was even an Amazon company. I don't even know where that account went because there were books on that. I'm kind of mad about that, actually. I lost all those books one day, and I had to remake my account through Amazon many years later, but interesting. I also didn't realize that Speechify had audiobooks. So that is also a new thing. So if you are an indie author, I would love to know your takes on everything that's going on in this video. And if you feel comfortable saying any conversations you've had with Audible or Amazon. I know that Amazon, there is a lot of fear going on with Amazon because they, as an indie author, can basically make or break you if they decide that somebody else holds your copyright or any number of things. They can just yoink you from their systems. So Amazon is a little terrifying.
If you want details, the current industry standard for a digital product is to pay a creator 70% on a sale. It's what Steam pays your average creator for a game sale. It's what Amazon pays on ebooks. It's what Apple pays for app downloads. And they're getting heat for taking as much as they are, rightfully so. Audible pays 40%. Almost half For a frame of reference, most brick and mortar stores take around $50 on a retail product. Audible pays indie authors less than a bookstore does when a bookstore has storefront, sales staff, and warehousing to deal with.
I do wonder about this though, because I think we sometimes forget that digital data does need to be stored somewhere. It might not be stored like in a storefront that you can see, but there is a footprint and an economic cost and ecological cost to having all of these giant servers in different random places around the world, like holding on to our data and whatnot. So I wonder if that's a part of it. But I think the other part is that just that Audible has a chokehold on the whole audiobook industry, but we shall proceed.
Knew things were bad, which is why I wanted to explore other options with the Kickstarter, but I didn't know how bad. Indeed, if indie authors don't agree to be exclusive to Audible, they get dropped from 40% to a measly 25%.
That's insane when you think about how expensive audiobooks are. I know that like a lot of places have a subscription model. Even LibreFN has a subscription model where you're paying like $10 a month or something like that, or like $15 a month or whatever it is a month to buy an audiobook. It's like half the cost of most audiobooks to get one audiobook a month, but like still that's crazy. That's a crazy drop in percentage. That's insane.
Buying an audiobook through Audible instead of from another site literally costs the author money. Again, I like the people at Audible. I like a lot about Audible. I don't want to go to war, but I do have to call them out. This is shameful behavior. I'll bet every person there will say they are a book lover, and yet they are squeezing indie authors to death. I have had several meetings with them, and I felt like I could see their embarrassment in their responses and actions. Here's the problem. There are no true competitors to Audible. Sure, there are other companies that can buy your book, but they all just list on Audible and then take a percentage on top of what Audible is taking. Apple, their books come.
That's the problem. Everything, this is what I said in the beginning, almost everything funnels in to Audible. It is almost impossible to get a book that somehow is not connected to Amazon in some way when it comes to audiobooks. Like it is really difficult. It is not an easy job trying to find those books. I forgot lipstick and I forgot eyeliner, but we'll get there eventually.
In large part from Audible. Recorded books, they are an awesome company whom I love, but their biggest market is Audible. Macmillan, my publisher, they just turn around and put their books on Audible. I had a huge problem finding anyone who, if I sold the secret projects to them, wouldn't just put them on Audible. And while I can't tell you details, all of their deals are around the same low rates that Audible is paying indie authors. Audible runs this town, and they set the rates for everyone, everywhere. I found two companies only in all of the deals I investigated who are willing to take on Audible.
Hold on, I need to get the rest of my face. We're going to back up a second.
I found two companies only in all of the deals I investigated who are willing to take on Audible. Spotify and Speechify. My Spotify deal is, unfortunately, locked down behind NDA. All I can say is that they treated me well, and I'm happy. Here's where the gold star goes to Speechify. Let me tell you, they came to me and said, full of enthusiasm for the project, they'd give me 100%. I almost took it, but then I asked the owner if this was a deal he could give other authors, or if it was a deal only Brandon Sanderson could get. He considered that, then said he'd be willing to do the industry standard.
Yeah, it sounds like Speechify just wants to have assets that are exclusive to Brandon Sanderson because he's a juggernaut, and they are a tiny player in this space, and that would be a huge win for Speechify. Like that would be a giant win for Speechify. But I can't do liner and talk to you. I can't do liner and talk to you. But yeah, no. It makes me like a little bit uncomfortable that they were like, "Hey, we're gonna give you 100% of your royalties, but we won't give anybody else 100% of your royalties." It sounds like they do come down to a better thing, but like, ooh, I don't know. All these business deals make me feel like kind of gross. Does anybody else just kind of feel gross when they hear things like this? I don't know. It just makes me kind of feel a little icky.
70% for any author who lists their books directly on Speechify a la carte. So I told him I wanted that deal if he agreed to make the terms of our deal public. I've made enough on this Kickstarter. I don't need to squeeze people for every penny. But what I do want is to find a way to provide options for authors. I think that by agreeing to these two deals, I'm doing that. We have the open offer from Speechify, and we have Spotify trying very hard to break Audible's near monopoly. I hope this will rejuvenate the industry, because I do like Audible. I worry that they'll stagnate, strangle their creators, and end up burning away because of it. Real competition.
I will say that I'm glad that he's not continuing to grab money, because that most recent Kickstarter for me, if you've been here on the channel for a bit, you know that I'm not the biggest fan of Brandy Sandy. I don't talk about it a lot because his fans are terrifying. But you know, we don't all have to like everybody. But I'm not the biggest fan of Brandy Sandy. You're not going to see a lot of Brandy Sandy content on my page. This, I think, is good because I enjoy that he didn't go for more money, because it feels like a bit of, well, I guess he did kind of go for more money if you think about it, because he got himself a better deal, but it wasn't, he's positioning it in a way that is like to help the greater good, which I prefer that, because it felt like, especially at the time that he was doing this Kickstarter, his most recent Kickstarter, and he was making a, a lot of money, like buco bucks with this Kickstarter. And we were just, Ukraine was just getting invaded. There was a lot of stuff going on. And the fact that there was not a lot of discussion about, like, hey, sir, what are you going to do with all this money that you're making off of this while the world's burning down around us? Kind of set wrong with me. But anyway, I'm glad that he's at least using his clout and his power to potentially try to infect some like good real change for smaller creators in the space. I think that that's really great. So yeah, sorry, I keep interrupting. Keep going. This is gonna be a really long video if I don't shut up.
Is good for everyone, including the companies themselves. Lack of it leads to slow corporate death. So I'm not putting these books on Audible. Not for a year at least, maybe longer. I need to be able to make a statement, and I realize this makes it inconvenient for many of you. I'm sorry, I really am. And I know it's going to cost me a ton of sales, because right now, people tend to just buy on the platform they're comfortable with. The Lost Metal pre-orders were 75% audio, almost all through Audible. I know many of my fans, probably hundreds of thousands of them, simply won't buy the books because it's super inconvenient to go somewhere else. Indeed, Audible locks you into the mentality of making you sign up for a subscription to get proper prices on audiobooks, which then makes you even more hesitant to shop around.
That is the hardest thing about separating from Audible. I would love to separate from Audible, but there's like a couple things that keep me from being able to separate from Audible. There is the convenience factor, because like almost everything in the world that is an audiobook is available on Audible. So I can find everything. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. That's something, if you're here a lot, you know. So I like to be able to locate audiobooks. Also, if you're a Prime member, and I've noticed that different people get different deals. It depends on how, I guess maybe how long you've been a member, but it's like $14 a month for me to get my one credit, or like $15 a month for me to get my one credit. But then I can buy a pack of 3 credits for $11 a piece. So that's still about the cost of one audiobook bought outright for me to get 3 audiobooks now, or like 2.5, let's say. I'm not made of money. Like at some point it's about money from the consumer's point of view. Like, yes, I love Libra FM because I know that I'm supporting brick and mortar stores. I think that the authors get a decent chunk of money from it too. And like that is like a feel good thing. But at some point there's a balance as a consumer between what I can do that feels good and does good and is a good place to put my money, and what I can afford. And Audible has many of us in this chokehold because it's what we can afford. And I hate that. I hate that so much.
But please take the time to try these books somewhere else. I've priced them at $15, the current price of a monthly subscription to Audible, at their most common price point. You can get these books with no subscription and no credit. Each book you buy somewhere else helps break open this field. It will lead to lower prices, fewer subscription models, and better pay for authors. Plus, these partners I've gone to really deserve support for being willing to try to change things. Now, it goes without saying that I absolutely support what Sanderson is doing here. This is someone putting their principles over their wallet, and it matters.
Does anybody think that Daniel Greene would ever say anything against Brandon Sanderson, though? Not the point of this video, but like, I think it just goes without saying that you're going to agree with Brandon Sanderson, period. Anyway, keep going.
I know there's going to be a lot of people in the comments section who are just saying he's possibly doing this for attention or what have you, but no, I promise, as someone who has published a book before, not being on Audible is going to drastically affect the amount Sanderson will make from these books in the long run, especially if he keeps it off there for longer than a year. He was not lying when he said 75% of the pre-orders for The Lost Metal were audio, and a large, vast percentage of that is going to be through Audible. But as someone who has indie published a book, this gets far worse than just the Audible problem, and it balloons out to an Amazon problem. I don't mean to sound conspiratorial, but Amazon is successfully positioning multiple companies they own to almost be the default publisher you have to use if you're trying to publish fiction, as well as the place to go to read these books because of how many are forced into being exclusively on their platforms.
I think this is a huge problem, and I'm glad that Branderson. I am so glad that Sanderson is doing this because it calls attention. He has such a large fan base, so it's going to call a lot more attention to this, and he does have enough clout where he may be able to affect some change. But the fact of the matter is I don't understand why there aren't more like antitrust things going on in general, especially around Amazon, because they have really capitalized too many markets, especially the markets of publishing, and they are really just cannibalizing like booksellers and the publishing industry and all kinds of other things, and just destroying any of that free market trade that existed, pre-Amazon. And again, I use Amazon, okay, like a lot, like a lot, because like I said before, it becomes this battle between like what you want to do as like a thoughtful consumer and what you can afford as a person living in this time, especially in this time of like economic strife for all. Hopefully, I mean, I don't know. Do you think that Sanderson's going to actually change anything, or is this just kind of like a performative? Not that I think he's being performative, but is this just a moment that's going to end up in the grand scheme of things mostly being performative in nature and isn't going to actually change anything?
Think about the cut that Audible is taking. You are left with 40%. And if you don't agree to be exclusive there, that is going to be cut down to 25. And when 75-ish% of your pre-orders or orders for your book are coming in through that platform, guess where you're probably going to want to be exclusive for at least your audiobook, right? Oh, and by the way, the easiest way to get your audiobook produced now if you are an indie author is through ACX, which is owned by Audible. And of course, once you get your book produced, you're immediately going to be offered to put it on Audible for this vastly better rate. But once it's on Audible, guess what? You're also going to be offered Kindle Select. It's a program where you exclusively publish the ebook of your book directly to Kindle and nowhere else. And if you do that, guess what? You'll go ahead and get better pay, and more valuably, in my opinion, you will also get promoted in the most valuable ebook market space in the world, Kindle Unlimited. And yeah, it directly says if you go exclusive with them, you will get paid better and you will get promoted more.
That seems criminal. Does that seem criminal to anybody else? That seems criminal to me.
And as someone who has sold an ebook, guess what market you really can't afford to miss out on? I didn't go exclusively to Kindle Unlimited, but if you look at the chart of my sales, I might as well have. I just didn't want to exclusively sell through Amazon because ew. Full transparency though, I did agree to have my audiobook be Audible exclusive and iTunes because that's their deal. Because when I saw the 25%, I went, man, I got morals, but apparently there's a line. I can't just get 25%.
People have morals, but people also have bills. This is huge, and this is why this chokehold is so bad. Also, I hate that, like, if you're exclusive on Audible, I can't talk today. Audible, you can't even get them at your library. Like, so that is, like, to me, the most sinister part of it all is that if you're exclusive on Audible, I can't even get that audiobook through Libby because it's exclusive to Audible. Like when I go looking for my audiobooks, the first place I go is Amazon to see if it's exclusive, or Audible to see if it's an exclusive title. If it's not on there, and if then it's not anywhere. And if it's on there and it's exclusive, I'm not going to find it anywhere else. And then I have to, like, if I really want to listen to the thing, then I have to either use a credit or wait till I have a credit or whatever it is. Like, it's crazy. What's the point of having a free library system that has digital stuff if you can't get stuff because they're being cannibalized and eaten up by this just mega Goliath corporation that is Amazon? Ugh.
Now, that's the reason why it's taken me a bit longer to actually cover this video. When the news first broke, I did ask my publisher if they could then reach out to the audiobook publisher and not have my next book be an Audible exclusive. It didn't even go that far because I was pretty much just told straight up that is not going to happen because of how much money we would lose. Think about that. Even the publishers know now if they don't go Audible exclusive with their release, because so much of the market is there, and because you get such a better rate, I'm sure even with the deals they do behind the doors that are just like what the publishers get versus what an indie author gets, that it is a better financial decision to go with Audible exclusives than all of the rest of the competitors combined. And with so many authors being incentivized to either partially or fully exclusively use Amazon services, the readers who don't want to miss out on books from their favorite authors are through a self-feeding cycle being tempted and pulled into buying into this ecosystem themselves all the more. So
yeah, it's impossible to avoid Amazon. And it is brilliant from a business perspective. As a business, you're like, if you take that look at it and look through that lens, you're like, you did fantastic, Jeffy. Like, Jeffy, you have positioned your business to be the provider of choice for, in particular, books, for every way that you can consume a book. You are becoming the provider of choice for God knows how many other things. You've gobbled up all kinds of stuff like Whole Foods connections and all kinds of other nonsense. But you cannot avoid them. They are unavoidable. It's frustrating.
yeah, when Sanderson was talking about in his letter that he went to multiple different people to see if they could not do it through Audible, and the answer he got was, no, we're going to do it through Audible, there's a reason. Now, I'm going to put the asterisk that I'm not trying to say they have a complete monopoly or that every author makes these decisions. All I'm trying to stress is that it's reaching a point where Amazon is succeeding in more and more sectors of the publishing space, making it so that if you do not use their services, you are starting, especially if you are indie, with yourself shot in the foot. And that's why.
So, but like, they don't have a monopoly yet, Daniel. Yet. They're positioning themselves to monopolize the entire industry. And that is scary because it's like, where are the antitrust laws? Do I have stuff in my teeth? Where are the antitrust laws? Where are the people that are like, no, you can't own this much of a share of like companies?
Why it's so important that Sanderson is mentioning other companies like Speechify and Spotify. But I'm going to take that even further and shout out things like
Libro.fm,
which actually supports local bookstores. You also have Libby, which takes advantage of local libraries and is completely free if you have a library card. Someone needs to do it.
I'm also going to add Hoopla in there. There is something called Chirp, which is like a discount bookseller, like audiobook seller. They have different discounts every so often. I do enjoy that. I did try Walmart's like Kobo connected ebooks. Didn't really like that. But that does exist, I believe, still. Scribd is $10 or $20. I don't remember how much it is anymore, but it's a monthly subscription and you can listen to a whole bunch of different things. You can read things, you can get sheet music, you can listen to podcasts. There's all kinds of stuff you can do through Scribd. There's so many ways to not directly interact with Audible. But I think the important thing is that almost every book ends up having to be listed on Audible. Like somehow, in some way, even if you're not necessarily noticing it, you're still connected to Audible. It's kind of scary.
Deep dive into how the world just forgot about libraries. They're so cool and people just do not take advantage of.
People take advantage of the libraries more, and they would take advantage of the libraries more if we did talk about them more. You're correct. You're correct. We do need to beef up our library systems more. Talk about them more, Daniel. I agree. I agree. We agree. We agree on this. But what happens if and when Audible has the exclusive rights to like a large portion of the audiobook catalog that is out there. Your libraries won't have them anymore. It's dangerous. We're on a slippery slope. We're on a slippery slope.
Them. I can already see the comment being put in my comment section that I'm overreacting. People are still picking stuff off the bookshelf all the time without any influence from Amazon. Absolutely. I don't think Amazon controls what everyone reads. I am just saying on the publishing side of
I think Amazon has more fingers in our pies than that sounds weird. I think Amazon has more control over things than we like to give them credit for.
thing, it really makes me uncomfortable as a consumer how much control and incentive they are able to offer to completely go their way versus any other competitor, let alone in some spaces, every competitor combined. The positive note I can end this video on, though, is it does seem to be the case that more and more people are taking notice of this, and the fact that we have someone like Sanderson taking this big stand really matters. Because whether it's the response I've seen Sanderson get for this or the Disney Must Pay situation, once one author really starts making noise, you usually find a whole lot who will fall in line behind them and hopefully leverage it enough to make a difference. We've even seen Amazon respond to pressure like this before with the whole return loophole on Audible they finally fixed. Those were just my thoughts on a really
Yeah, so that's the sitch. That's what's going on. I really find this whole thing very interesting. I'm very curious to see where things go. I like that Sanderson has sort of pulled the lid off and let us look behind the scenes at what goes on over at Audible. I think he was very diplomatic and making sure that he sort of appeased the beast that is Audible by saying how wonderful and great everybody is. And it's not about the people that work at Audible, it's just about, you know, everything else, because it's important to not piss off Audible. Because at the end of the day, Amazon does have a lot more power than I think sometimes we want to admit in the publishing space. But I'm super curious to hear what everybody has to think about this. Did you know about this? If you're an indie author, what are your thoughts? Are there alternatives to ACX if you're an indie author and you want to do an audiobook, but you don't want to go through an Amazon company? What are the downsides of doing that? I have lots of questions. I'd love to hear everybody's thoughts in the comments. I hope you enjoyed. I'm glad that my voice is better, so it's not so squeaky this time. Anyway, I have more videos to film today, and I have a face on now to do them. So like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video, whatever that may be, because it's my channel and I can do whatever I want. Bye.
So just sit with me, talking to the night until the morning, building chemistry. I don't think I ever wanna go come closer next to me. Trying to find another way to say this, but I think